Thank you for joining our webinar on delivering a great application experience to remote workforces. I'm John Payne, the UK Channel Manager at Edgenexus. This webinar should take about 20 odd minutes and then we've got time for any questions. So, delivering a great application experience. We tend to talk about an application experience rather than simply basic remote access because we think they're two different things. In the same way as a mobile phone is very different to a walkie-talkie, even though they both provide voice connectivity. The quality of the experience has a direct impact on user engagement and productivity. The big background to all of this is obviously the coronavirus, which is primarily a health emergency, but has had massive implications for business and the economy. So, new world of working. I looked up the figures from the ONS, and in 2019, about 5% of people mainly work from home. But that was everyone from, I suppose, IT salesmen through to artists, hairdressers, etc. Interestingly, only about 30% of people said they'd ever worked from home. So as the start of March 2020, a lot of organisations and employees were hit by a new world, and they were hit at speed. I couldn't find reliable numbers for lockdown, but we all know there's a lot of people at home. A little anecdote for you. Lloyd's of London closed their underwriting rooms for the first time in their 350-year history. Even the Blitz hadn't done that. So I think in terms of short term, we're looking at the lockdowns. There's been a focus on I suppose, getting hardware, laptops been flying out the door, people putting in connectivity. But for a lot of organisations, it's been a bit sticky plaster. So quick fix remote working solutions, quick fix capacity gains. But sticky plasters aren't there for the long term. And I think organisations are starting to realise that the present situation isn't going to return to normal very soon, or possibly any time soon. I think 75% of CFOs just told Gartner that some of their full-time office workers, they're gonna stay remote workers after this is all over. Medium term, what are we looking at? Intermittent lockdowns, regional lockdowns are very possible. Longer term, I think predictions are brave. Some organisations will go back to how they were, but many won't. Sometimes that'll be because it will be employee-led. Employees have had a taste of working from home and they like it. Sometimes organisations will use this as the kicker for real estate consolidation. I've worked with councils in the past that had to consult for years just to shut a few offices. The lockdown has established the principle and the viability of home working overnight. So in terms of some quick observations, at this stage, I suppose different roles are working remotely. This has increased the number of applications that need to be accessed remotely. Goodish reliability isn't good enough anymore. Percentage of the workforce, so for a lot of organisations, it's reached that critical mass where all applications need to be available remotely. Looking at things like time of day, so this is relevant to how many concurrent users, for example, a VPN server could handle. What's accessed has changed. So there's a lot of previously internal applications that now need to be published remotely. And finally, we can look at security, which has often been a bit of an afterthought. So we've been using Zoom for a while, but there's a huge number of organisations out there and groups who are suddenly using Zoom, but never thought to work to read and understand how the security actually worked. So a good remote application experience. So the first thing you need to do is set the goal, which should be the feel, the reliability, and the security of a corporate network, i.e. fast, reliable, and secure. So there's different elements of that. So the first one is remote access capacity. So how many users can work remotely at any one time? You don't want concurrency issues or performance bottlenecks. Application performance. So applications need to be quick. You don't want slow loading times. I've noticed Salesforce has slowed down, for example, since the lockdown. There's not much we can do that as an organisation, but because it's a cloud app, but I think Salesforce could. Reliability. What happens if a server slows down? If it fails, if contention rates get too high, or you lose a site? Have you got that corporate level, enterprise level resiliency? And again, security. In the excitement, organisations aren't always ensuring that applications are kept secure. Boring things like GDPR, they haven't gone away. So, Marriott Hotels or BA will tell you there's nothing like losing a few million customer details to ruin your day. So I think before we get to specifically talking about remote working, and to give a bit of context, I thought it'd be useful to have a slide on application delivery technology. So I've been in IT for nearly 20 years now, and I never realized how important this stuff was. Now, I've heard of load balancers, I'd even sold a few, but I'd always assumed they sort of did what switches did, and I was very wrong on that. So first of all, let's look at next generation load balancers. These are also known as application delivery controllers. So they sit in front of your servers. That's usually application servers, but it could be VPN servers, radius servers, etc. So they take incoming traffic and they distribute it across your servers. They do that for high availability, improved application performance, and for increased efficiency. They literally spread the load. It's so you don't have one server doing all the work whilst the others stand empty. Obviously, it's obviously a good thing. The first ones did it 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then they got a bit more intelligent and started being able to check how busy servers were, how healthy they were, if they'd stopped working, distribute on that basis. Now they can do things like make applications more efficient by taking on some heavy processing tasks like encryption, decryption. They can accelerate the user experience through compressing and caching. I think a good way of thinking about it is an Exchange server, for example, is most efficient when it's being an Exchange server, not when it's trying to be an odd job man. The next thing we move on to is global server load balancing, GSLB. So this is sort of bigger picture load balancing. So this is load balancing and failover across multiple data centers, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud. Again, this is for performance, availability, and efficiency. Also things like geolocation routing. So German users can be identified and sent to a German website located within a particular data center. So it's really important for things like regulatory compliance, or at times like this, for really speeding things up. You can also do some clever stuff around elegant shutdown data centers for maintenance purposes. Third thing to look at is web application firewalls. So these are not traditional firewalls. They plug the gaps left by traditional firewalls. So traditional firewalls protect layers 1 to 4. WAF is layers 4 to 7. If you think traditional firewalls look at the envelope and the stamp, WAF reads the letter to actually check the contents. You need them for things like PCI DSS compliance, but increasingly they're seen as important for securing all applications. Some of the things terms you might have heard of are SQL injection attacks, cross-site scripting, etc. It will also help with data loss prevention, as I think it's roughly 80% of attacks are at the application level these days. WAFs are incredibly important. And there's just a sort of diagram showing where they sit in the network. So one last thing I wanted to talk about, which is sort of Flightpath traffic magic, traffic management. So this is a really handy box of tools, handy at any time, but certainly during uncertain times. So the ADC, the load balancer, will read what the user is requesting from an application server and what the server is responding with, and then it can apply rules to both in real times. So what does that mean in practice? Well, for example, say someone was looking for an emergency number on a website, but those numbers have changed because guess what? It's an emergency and things change in emergencies. And maybe the organization can't update the website quickly enough. The load balancer can recognize the application server is about to send out the wrong number and change it in real time. That's just an example. It could be a telephone number, it could be a diagram, it could be a picture, any content you like. It can change that in real time. It could be, for example, that you've got an engineer scheduling tool that's accessible from the web. Everyone in your organization has the address bookmarked on their laptops, but the organization changes to a new tool, or at the very least, it changes to a new link. The ADC will spot employees are trying to access the wrong tool or the wrong link and send them to the right one. Maybe it might be that you want all website traffic to see a temporary coronavirus update, but you don't want to change your underlying website. You can use traffic management. You can also do things like, recognize credit card details. So you might allow them into your network, but there's never any good reason for them leaving the network, and it can sort of obscure them before they leave. So that is load balancers, ADCs, GSLB, WAF, and traffic management. These are the tools. What can they fix? So VPN capacity. This is literally the capacity of your organization to provide remote access. So there's a lot of VPN solutions out there. Microsoft has direct access. It's good, but it's getting a bit older now. You know, it provides that seamless connectivity to corporate networks without the user needing to do anything proactive. You've got Microsoft Always On. So this is basically the Windows 10 replacement for direct access. Pretty much the same. It just does a few more clever things around traffic filtering. So how can load balancing help this? Well, firstly, it can optimize the experience by directing traffic based on server response time, server health, least connections, a whole bunch of other things to get that just to optimize the experience. You can eliminate single points of failure to provide high availability. You've got flexible scalability, so you can add additional capacity in a really efficient way. And all those things don't just apply to the VPN, but also if you're using, say, a radius server for authentication, which you probably would be with Microsoft Always On, all these benefits would apply to the authentication server as well. Then you can look at geographic load balancing. So you can send users to the nearest or the least busy VPN server. This is really important if you think about it. The UK's internet backbone is being smashed by people using Zoom and Netflix, and sometimes at the same time. So it's really helpful to be able to send users to the most efficient data center. And you've also got, you're able to provide redundancy and failover across data centers. So the next thing to look at is remote desktop or remote application services. So typically these will give you access to your desktop or applications, and that'd be in any location and on multiple device types. So there's a number of products out there. Things like VMware, Horizon View, Microsoft RDS, Citrix Virtual Apps, Virtual Desktop. Load balancing, what can load balancing bring to the party? So firstly, scalability. You can grow your infrastructure with demand. And as sort of discussed, it's not just total demand, but the peak demand that will have increased with recent events, because you've got so many more people working from home during that crucial 9 to 5 peak period. Availability, it allows you to optimize traffic across servers in the event of a server outage. Resilience, again, you can use GSLB to provide service availability across sites. Finally, really important, performance, so you can be optimizing both servers and site. You can offload tasks such as SSL encryption, TCP optimization and compression. All of those things that are really, really important for the user experience, but that are, the application server itself shouldn't really be tying up its processing power on. So the last thing to look at actually is publishing applications on the web, and equally importantly, publishing them securely. So what I'm talking about is internal applications that are accessed via a browser. So examples in your personal life would be things like remote banking, or in a professional setting, you might have expenses, you might have engineering schedules, you might even have holiday planners. There'll be a lot of these applications that no one's ever needed to use remotely until Boris told us all to stay at home. It's probably worth saying that even those that are already in use, a lot of them aren't being secured very well. Microsoft TMG, Threat Management Gateway, is a great product for publishing web applications, but it's gone end of life. So, how can application delivery tools assist? Well, they can help with performance. So some of this stuff you've heard before, but optimize server efficiency, SSL offload. What we haven't really talked about before is that it can also do things like pre-authentication and single sign-on, and it does that before the traffic hits the application server. If you think about it, you don't want people already in your network before you say, if your name's not down, you're not coming in. Again, availability and resiliency across servers and data centers. But the really important one is to secure the application. As I said, roughly 80% of attacks are at the application layer these days. Firstly, you want a proxy. What is a proxy? It's just an intermediary, easy for me to say, device. It sits between the client and the application. It's so bad guys don't have direct access to your servers. Then with web application firewall, you can inspect the traffic looking for suspicious behavior. Remember, WAFs read the content, not just the address. So yeah, I mean, a WAF will satisfy PCI DSS and OWASP application firewall requirements, but more than that, it's really going to protect the organization. One thing I will say is that WAF in particular has a reputation as being, I suppose, difficult to deploy, difficult to manage. That's no longer the case. So hopefully that's given you a good brief briefing on how application delivery tools can help move an organization from providing quick fix remote access to a fast, reliable and secure application experience, the kind of thing that organizations will need as this new world of working becomes a bit more permanent. In the last few minutes, I suppose I just wanted to give you my best shot at explaining why I think Edgenexus is the vendor you should be considering or at least talking to. So quick slide on who we are. We're a UK-based technology vendor, global presence. So our global headquarters are in Marlow, but we've also got an office just outside Boston and in Singapore. Got a big international channel presence, trusted by thousands of customers all around the world. And that's from startups all the way up to the UK, US government, global enterprises like Sony and Boeing. We've got a huge whole host of mid-market organizations. Got a 16-year pedigree. What does that mean? Well, it means we've got that all-important experience and understanding of both enterprise and niche applications. Couple of things to add, actually. We have the only certified HPE hardware load balancer. We're totally vendor technology agnostic, but by using HPE for hardware, it means we can leverage their global support service and have some really high-performing boxes at a really good price. Last two, tech data and major investment. What do I mean by that? Well, we've just signed a partnership with Tech Data, world's biggest disty, and one of the big US tech investors made a big investment in us at the end of last year. We think it's really important in terms of credibility and momentum, I suppose. Customers are credibility, but I'm not going to dwell too much on this slide. The point is that whether you are public or private sector, you'll be in good company. So disruptively easy to migrate, to configure, to manage, to customize, to protect. Why is this so relevant? So there's an 80-20 rule, the dirty secret of load balancing. There would be, there'd have to be a dirty secret, or everyone would be using a load balancer and using all of its features. So typically, 80% of organizations only use about 20% at best of the load balancing features they purchase. Why? It's because anything other than basic load balancing is perceived as too difficult to use and therefore too risky to deploy. And that also applies to web application firewalls. I've met so many customers who bought really expensive solutions to tick a box, but they've never turned them on in full production. And the reason is because they're too scared that they're going to break their applications through false positives, that kind of thing. Taken a bit of blood, bit of sweat, some tears, but Edgenexus have made all of our functionality easy to use. In terms of how we've managed to do that, I think there's a whole bunch of reasons. It starts with, we've got an intuitive GUI with drag and drop. It's all run from a single pane of glass. That traffic management, traffic magic I was talking about earlier, there's no writing code with us. We're built from the ground up for layer 7. I think ultimately the Edgenexus design philosophy is that if it isn't easy to use, most customers won't use it. So, where's the value? Where's the point actually? And we also provide great support to our customers. The tagline, complexity is for the source code. It shouldn't be at the user face. And lastly, I think it's important to say that our pricing is very competitive. So when you add ease of use, you've got that real accessible, easy access to value. So innovation, we got a couple of things just to quickly focus on. The first one is one-click migration. So this is what it says on the tin. It's particularly important for F5 and Kemp customers because of that complexity I talked about. This means you can migrate at speed and it's de-risked. We've also got an app store, our unique app store. So it's just like the app store on your phone. If you think about how limited phones were before they had one, so it turns our humble load balancer into a future-proofed application delivery platform. So we use secure Docker containerization, and it allows clients to leverage a growing number of apps and microservices, things like web application firewall, GSLB, but also things like SDN, VPN, multi-platform security management. Our clients can go there and they can get things like pre-written traffic management rules or pre-configuration templates. It means that, it literally can be up and running in 20 minutes, and I do mean literally. So deployment options, we've got everything covered, and as I said, it's all easy to implement. So we've got our unique partnership with HPE for hardware. We've got the virtual load balancer, which is certified validated with VMware, Microsoft, Citrix, Cisco, Nutanix. We're also available on Azure and AWS. And as of, I think, this morning, the new VMware thing that I don't know enough to talk too much about, but we're on there as well. In terms of the WAF and the GSLB, we're available from the App Store. You can download it from the App Store. If you already have a load balancer appliance, you can run on cloud, or it's a standalone virtual appliance. So the phrase "seeing is believing," I think, ties up everything I've said over the last few slides. We've got the features and functionality, we've got that innovation, we've got the ease of use. So it's to our absolute benefit to make it as easy as possible for potential clients to see the products close up. So you can download a trial license, you can take a free test drive on Azure. There's free online tutorials, there's free email support, or we're really happy to provide a collaborative online demonstration. So that's it. We've packed in quite a lot, but we did call it a 20-minute briefing. Hopefully at least some of it will have been useful. If you've got any questions now, let me know. Otherwise, please get in touch if you'd like a chat. We're a friendly bunch.